Hey y'all, this is Angelica, and we have another episode of the Next One Up podcast. I'm really excited about who I have on today. It's one of my classmates. I've known her since middle school, so I'm really excited to be interviewing her. Thank you for agreeing to doing this interview, Miss Janie Hodges. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you, because right now you're at a track meet supporting your daughter. So I appreciate you taking the time to, make time for me and this interview. So I won't waste your time. Go ahead and get the interview started. So let's start from the beginning. When did you start your sports journey, and what sports did you play?
To be honest, I started playing sports in middle school. There was no Parks and Rec or anything like that when I was growing up. And if it was, my parents were just older, so I wasn't doing none of that. So I started out at West Hook Middle School, where I played volleyball and basketball. That's where it all kind of started for me.
Oh, wow. So that means, you didn't play any sports at all growing up? Like, even if it wasn't like on an organized team?
Nah, not at all. I got my first, I got my first basketball goal after making the middle school team.
Janie, girl, you would have thought that seeing you play in middle school, you would have thought that you had been playing your whole life. That is crazy. Just because the talent, we'll get to that. But your talent level, oh, wow. Okay. So, because you didn't have, Parks and Rec growing up, did you have anybody that inspired you to want to start playing sports?
Nah, I mean, to be honest, it was just something to do. I that's what I look forward to, going to middle school, getting the opportunity to play middle school sports. My friends were all playing sports, so it was like, all right, well, let's go try it. I mean, my sister wasn't athletic. My brother really wasn't athletic. So I didn't come from a big sports family. I was the first sport athlete kid that kind of came from my family, which had, was a whole new thing for everybody. So there was no real inspiration. It was just getting into something to do. So I couldn't go home every day. I was bored.
Right. So because you didn't have anybody like in your direct family to inspire you to want to play sports, do you have anybody who was like your sports influencers at all? Like any
honestly,
or anything like that?
Nah, if anybody, I would say my teammates. I felt like Hokecounty brought through a lot of talent. Just wanting to be my best version of myself for them, and they put forth the groundwork and took me to a lot of different opportunities with sports that I never thought I even had. So it was just my teammates that wanted me to be the best version of myself. Mm-hmm. And they taught me the game, and we were just kind of learning it as we was going. So if anybody, would definitely be the old heads of Hokecounty.
Right. Well, so what sports did you say you played volleyball? I know you played basketball. Did you play softball too, right?
I ran track in high school. I did play softball in middle school, and that was the worst experience of my life.
Okay.
I think I was out there for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, I'm not going out there. It's hot. So after that, I knew softball wasn't for me.
Right. Okay. I didn't realize you didn't play softball. I knew you ran track definitely in high school because we ran together, but I didn't realize you didn't play softball. Okay. So what is you played sports. Now take us through the journey. Like, did you play sports in middle school? You played sports in high school. Did you go on to play in college, or did you have the opportunity did you get any looks as far as, because you were basically a new athlete. So did you get any looks or anything when you were in high school and have the chance to play in college?
I actually got the chance to play volleyball in college. I had opportunities to play basketball as well. it just wasn't on a stage that I felt like I wanted to play. I mean, I think back in the day it was, if you're not going to be playing and being on TV, what's the point in really going to play basketball? Mm-hmm. So thankfully with the advances of my parents and allowing them to make mixtapes and sending it out to coaches, that was all kind of done individually through me and them. I was able to get the opportunity to go play volleyball at the next level.
Cool. Now you were able to play sports in college as well, which a lot of athletes, they don't get the chance. They don't get the chance to do that. So what was that driving force for you to be able, like, for you to want to actually go to the next level and play?
Not wanting to quit the game. I think sports taught me a lot about myself. I just love to be around it. I love the camaraderie of the sports. So just still wanting to be active, still wanting to be a part of a family was my main drive. And just knowing that I was too talented for somebody to tell me no.
Yeah. Now, as far as your career now, what are you doing now? Because I know at one point in time you were coaching. So what's your career now?
I'm still coaching at the high school level. Been at it for 18 years. So I went and played volleyball as a freshman at UNCW, and I tore my ACL. And at that point in time, I thought life was over, right? Because you was a freshman in college, sports is all you know. And I kind of dove into coaching at that point and been doing it ever since. It's a great opportunity to coach young ladies and just be able to shape and mold the future. It's a challenge now. These kids is different. They're not like us when we were back playing sports. So just trying to motivate them and show them that it's something other than being a basketball player or being a volleyball player. Like, it's other parts of life that I wish I knew when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm. What sports do you coach?
I coach volleyball and basketball. I've been coaching basketball for 18 years now, and I've coached volleyball for about 10. I've ranged from being a head coach to a JV coach. Right now, I'm being a head coach of both. So it's a long season.
Now, wait a minute. I remember you going to coach at one of our rival schools. Didn't you coach at Scotland?
I did coach at Scotland High School. That was an interesting dynamic every time we played hokecounty. But it was definitely a great opportunity to serve underprivileged kids. Like, just being able to get that opportunity to coach kids who never went and stayed overnight or didn't really know how to order off a menu. Like, those are the things that I introduced them to, and I think those are the things that drove me to want to be a better coach for kids like them. I mean, of course they got wins on the court because they have me, of course, but it was just that opportunity to show them life beyond basketball and to know that all those young ladies went to college, and 5 of them went to go on to be D1 athletes. Like, that's beyond amazing, and that's beyond blessed. Yeah. And that's some of the opportunities that, underprivileged kids don't get all the time.
Yeah. Now, what were some of your challenges that you faced during your sports journey, and how do you feel that you overcame them?
I mean, I played sports under Coach Esther Holland Shaw, and anybody that played under her understood that, like, she was no nonsense. She would get on you. She would break you down sometimes. So I think the biggest obstacle I had with her as a coach is just understanding my role. I'm embracing it and not giving up, even when I wasn't good enough. Like, when I was told that I wasn't good enough or I didn't do something right. And that comes from teammates just kind of being there to pick you up when you're down and everybody else holding you accountable. I think that's a life lesson that I learned moving forward. I definitely took a lot of things from her as a coach and moving forward, especially younger to my career. But there was also some things that I knew that I didn't want to put in my athletes based off the experiences that I've had with her. as a player. But don't get me wrong, like outside of the gym or the court or whatever, she's an excellent person. But we all have our moments when we're coaching that we get so caught up in the moment that we forget that these are kids, you know. So I really try to take that and be better at it. And I think that was just one of the biggest obstacles I had as a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you talk about like the challenges of like a coach really knowing how to speak to their players, how to identify with their players. Now that you're a coach, what are some things that you see that your players that you dealt with that your players deal with now? And what's like some advice that you have for coaches on helping them be more aware of the things that their players are dealing with and how to communicate with them and like best serve them?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that these kids are with today, and necessarily that we dealt with it because social media wasn't as big when we were in high school, but all these kids live for is what's on social media, what the ranking is, who's talking about them. And the sad part about it is most of the time, their parents is the main one dogging them out. And for them to be able to go in the car, go in the house and have to deal with that. So as a coach, I get that we always want to chastise our kids and we want to break them down and build them up. And we want to be their biggest cheerleaders. But understanding and having those conversations, those tough conversations about home life, you know, what's the real goal? Like, why are you doing this? Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it to please a parent? Because once you build that relationship with kids, and I think kids these days, you have to have those grassroots relationships with for them to really buy into what you're saying and for them to really put out, because for most of them, that's all they got. Mm-hmm. Like, at least when we were playing sports back in the day, we had, for the most part, most of us had like a solid family foundation. Like, we knew we was going home, we was going to have food, we was going to be good. Like, we had clothes to go to school, but like these kids today are just battling so many different things, and they're getting it from all sides. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the parents, whether it's social media, whether it's their own teammates, whether it's people in high school. Like, kids are mean these days. Mm-hmm. So genuinely talking to your players and letting them know that you care about them as an athlete, but you also care about them as a person. Mm-hmm. And that definitely takes time, and that relationship looks very different from one kid to the next kid. Because you may really vibe with this one kid, and this one kid you just can't seem to reach. And I feel like it's those kids that you feel like you can't seem to reach be the ones that have the most issues. Mm-hmm. And you can't give up on that kid. You got to keep laying that foundation, and you got to keep throwing the crumbs out there, because eventually they'll take it. Now, you may spend 6 months trying to build that relationship, and you only got 2 more months left in the season. But when that kid gets it and they understand that you're there for them, you'll have that relationship with them for their life.
Mm. Now, so because you're a coach, did that help you when it comes to helping your own daughter? Because she runs track now, you know, at the D1 level. Did that help you, you know, even what you received when you were growing up, did that help you be a better mom, be a better supporter? But also, because I imagine you help coach her a little bit as well. So did that help you, the things that you've had to do with your own athletes, did that help you, you know, help her when it came to advising her and supporting her?
Oh, definitely. Now, I'll tell anybody, coaching your kid is 2 different monsters. I did have the honor of coaching her for basketball for 4 years. And it was a crazy time. It was moments where she hated me because I have this philosophy, like, when we're in the gym, it's business. It's nothing personal. So from a business side, I can get on you a certain way. And then when we walk out the door, I'm mom again. And so she had a hard time understanding that dynamic early on. But trying to limit the things that we talked about as far as basketball outside of the gym was a struggle for us. It was a war of 2 worlds. Like, I'll tell anybody, coaching your kid is the most rewarding thing to do. However, it's the most challenging thing to do at the same time. And the stuff that I did for my other kids, it didn't matter. Like, she never saw it as that. You know what I'm saying? Like, she always took it personal. Or she would always feel like my mom is yelling at me instead of my coach. So just being able to find that balance, I think it takes maturity from that kid and from the parent to kind of be able to take a step back and be like, all right, I ain't even gonna say nothing to you right now, because if we do, it ain't even gonna end well. So it didn't work. To answer your question, nothing that I experienced as a player or coaching other kids, it didn't work. Because the expectation for her was just so much higher than everybody else's. So was that fair? No. Did it make her who she is today? Yes. And does she appreciate it now that she's out my house? Definitely. But in the moment, she wasn't feeling it.
So, I'd imagine, you implementing or you wanting to make sure that you change, because like you said, you're a like new athlete, fairly new, playing in middle school and high school. And, so when it came to teaching her or even making sure her experience was different, how did you make sure that you gave her that? Because I imagine, like, to me, and this is coming from somebody who is, I know it's been seeing you play from the start. I feel like, you definitely could have, granted UNCW is a great school. And I'm glad that you were able to play football. I mean, not football, Lord, volleyball. But you were definitely strong in all three sports. But basketball, I always saw a different grit for basketball when it comes to you, especially seeing you play through injuries and different things. And like when they came to hokecounty and they knew they were playing against Janie Hodges, they knew that they was playing against somebody that was super, super tough, and they try to beat down on you a lot. Is there anything that you wish that, or that you identified that you dealt with, and you wanted to change that for her, and make sure that she didn't have to go through that? Because I feel like you dealt with a lot. You dealt with a lot in high school. And, I'm sure that you wanted things to be different for her.
Yeah, definitely. One, I think my biggest goal for her was not to be a teen mom. I didn't want her to be a statistic. So I had her at 16, which I wasn't going to, I didn't want that life for her, because at that point, it just, things change, opportunities change. And then just from an athletic side, just being able to do different things. So I made sure that she got started in sports at the age of 5. Like, whenever you can play, go play, because those are the things that get you started so early, and they propel you to a bigger stage than you even know. So just making sure that she was able to do multiple things, play soccer, go out here and play volleyball, play basketball, and not kind of corner her in, because being at Hope County, like, we only really knew the main sports. So, you had basketball, you had volleyball if you was a girl, you play softball, or you can run track. But in the whole grand scheme of things, there's so many different sports out here for kids that people at Hope County don't necessarily even know until they get outside of the county. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's lacrosse, and there's all these tennis, and all these different things that generate money for kids, especially African American kids, that we don't even get to tap into because we don't know they exist until too late. So just exposing her to all these different sports and allowing her to pick what works for her. And even basketball, like, she loved the sport, but she didn't love it. So we had to have a conversation when she was in 7th grade, and it's like, all right, look, like, you want to play basketball, then we can't do track, because you got to play AAU basketball if you really want to be able to be good and go to college and get this paid for, and we got to get this money. And those were the conversations that nobody ever had with me, because in high school, I didn't even really know what the protocols were to get a scholarship. Or I remember my sister being at USCC, and she's like, Janie, did you take the SAT? And I was like, what's the SAT? And I'm a senior. So because I didn't know certain things early, I feel like it put me at a disadvantage. And because nobody was there to tell me, and I don't know who dropped the ball. I could go for days about who I felt like should have told me this or who should have told me that. But there's so many things that we weren't told up front that made us miss opportunities. So just always trying to educate her and expose her to different things that I wasn't exposed to, because that exposure piece just changes kids and the way they think and the way they move, the way they talk. It just opens up a whole new world for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, it's so crazy because, you hear a lot of athletes or, people that we grew up with that just were phenomenal and so talented. And it's like somebody dropped the ball.
Definitely.
And I find that they are now trying to make sure that they're not the ones that's dropping the ball for another child that they're coaching or they're, mentoring. Right. And it's just sometimes it feels like so unfortunate, that, we have so much talent, but it stops at a certain level when you don't have the right people around you to guide you. Especially if you have certain dreams. Like, were any of your coaches or anybody asking you like what you wanted to do? Like, did you want to go off to school? Did you want to, you know what I mean? Like, did anybody ask you that?
Yeah, that wasn't really a conversation that we had. We got this conference, we go win conference, we go to state playoffs, and we were always under the impression like somebody see you at the state playoffs and they like you, and then they go offer you a scholarship. Like, I didn't really even know that I needed to get a highlight tape until my senior year, because the coach was like, I need you to send me film. Well, we didn't have film.
Right.
Like,
who was recording?
We wasn't recording the game.
Nobody was recording.
Nobody was recording the game. Like, unless it was your parent with a VHS up there in the stands. So nobody was recording the game. So then it was, scramble trying to get film and people coming in and record me work out in practice or I staying late and trying to get action shots. So I was so far behind the curve and coaches didn't do it. And I honestly feel like maybe they didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, at that time, all the hokecounty coaches were kind of older. Think about when they had went to school. Yeah. That was a whole different recruiting time.
Yeah.
So, I know for me and my classmates, we didn't get those opportunities because we just didn't know and nobody else around us knew, I feel like.
Yeah. So what are some things that you think that one that you did, like you did for your own daughter? Because clearly, like she's at a big school, a very well-known school, doing amazing things. What are some things that you're recommending that if, like, say, for instance, a parent is listening to this or one of the, the kids from, the young athletes from Hoke County is listening to this, what is some of those things that you didn't know, but now you do know that you can recommend that they do, starting now, getting started, if they, or maybe they're in that period where, they might have people coming to look at them and they don't really know and their parents don't know, and maybe their coaches aren't talking to them. What are some things that you recommend that they get started doing to potentially kind of go to the next level?
As a parent, you got to be your child's biggest advocate. Like, you can't necessarily call the coaches for them because coaches don't like to talk to parents, but you need to make sure your kids are reaching out via email, via social media to any school that they're interested in. Whether the school knows them or not, just reaching out and introducing themselves. Hey, my name is so-and-so. I go to Hoke County High School, and I'm interested in playing sports for your program or for your school. I'm interested in playing basketball. Here's my schedule. And that coach may not ever reach back out. However, that coach will always have you in their inbox until they delete it. So for them to delete it, they still got to open it and look and see who you are. I think that's the biggest key is, one, just introducing yourself and stepping outside of your box. to not limiting yourself to a certain conference or a certain school. Like, we sent emails out to probably 150 schools. I think that by her junior year, she had interest from 235 schools that we had to narrow down from. And that was all because we sent information out. She was talented, you know, in the top 50 in the class of 2020. Did she graduate in 2020? Yeah. In the class of 2020, she was top 50 overall, but we still had to do the groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
So just, and tell kids they have to open up their mouths and speak to people, or respond back. I think that was the other issue that we had. A coach would text her and she'll be like, "Oh, I'll just text him tomorrow." No, you're going to take the time and you're going to text him back, because promptness is what we look at.
Mm-hmm.
So just making sure that kids, one, reach out for themselves, parents record any and everything. And at this point, like, you can edit film on your cell phone. So there's no excuse as to why your child doesn't have a highlight film. And get the good and the bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody can't shoot the three. As a coach, I don't want to watch this highlight film of somebody just always scoring. I want to see if they can play defense. I want to see if they're a good teammate. I want to see if they're running up and down the court. I want to see if they're high-fiving their teammates. So get the whole game and make sure that you're selling a whole kid, not just putting them in a box as saying that they can only do this one thing. And lastly, I think it's just having a clean social media. As a coach, I can't tell you how many times coaches will call me and be like, "Coach, you know, I really like this kid, but tell me about her, because I looked at her on social media and this is what I see." So you gotta clean your social media up. Don't think that your spam is spam and can't nobody find it. And parents, just be in your kid's corner, and don't tell them where to go. Let them make that choice, you know, and don't try to pick a school for them, or don't tell them that they're too good for something, because one offer could always lead to another offer. And I think that's a big challenge in our community. You know, "Oh, you better than Central." Well, all Central got to do is post that they offered you, and then you'll get another offer from somebody else. So understanding the dynamics of the game and being willing to play it. And parents, you got to be approachable too. So when college coaches are talking to you, you got to make it seem like they're telling you the best thing in the world, whether you want to hear it or not. Because you have to play the game. Recruiting is a game for the most part, especially for athletes that can play. So play the game, be open to whatever, and ultimately want the best for your kids, not what's best for you, not what looks good for social media. But let's talk about money. Let's talk about education. And what's your plan for your child? And if they can't answer those three things, then you move forward and you move on to somebody else.
That's so good. That's so good. And honestly, I would say, like, out of, you know, I haven't been able to hear that direct advice from any of my other interviews. Specifically, like, you know, it's really interesting, especially, I guess, for anyone, because a lot of, you know, you are directly experiencing this right now. You've been experiencing in the last couple of years. So it's really good because it's so timely and just relevant to what, you know, a lot of the parents could be dealing with now, a lot of what the kids are dealing with now. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And if nobody's talking about it, especially around here, and I just continue to hear that, you know, this person's not telling me this, or they're not this and that and third. But it sounds like the first thing you said, it starts with taking the initiative to, you know, put yourself out there and reach out to these schools and make a connection first. And that could lead to something else. Instead of waiting on somebody to come to you, you go to them and show your interest to them. And I think that's so, like, you know, not talked about enough, because again,
definitely,
you know, you think, oh, they're going to come and see me And well, how they gonna know about you if you don't tell them about you? You know what I mean? So
right.
that's really, really good. Now, what are 3 characteristics that you think make an athlete great?
First one got to be heart. If you ain't got no heart, you'll never be good at what you're doing. And when I say heart, I mean like the desire to be the best version of yourself and to be better than you were the day before. Two will be grit. Like, you got to be a dog, especially in the world of athletics that we live in today, especially at the high school level where you got the transfer portal already fighting against you. Like, you got to be a dog. You got to be somebody that a coach knows they can go to, and you're going to compete day in and day out. And lastly, being a good communicator. You got to be able to communicate, one, your wants, your needs, and two, things that's wrong and what may be hindering you today. I think that's so many issues with kids is that they don't know how to communicate. So, coach, I can't practice today. Why you can't practice? I just can't practice. That's not good enough. That's not good enough on any level. But we have kids tell us that all the time, and this is like, all right. And when you tell a coach that, a coach scratches your name off and we push you to the back of the list, and you won't play for me. And if I got to deal with you with a season, all right, well, you ain't gonna get on the court unless I really need you to. So I get that we all have good days, bad days, and different days, but being able to communicate, because I get that maybe your mama told you need to come home because you got in trouble. Now, to me, as a coach, that's not an excuse. But if you tell me that, then maybe I'm able to call mom and I can work something out. And then I'm not looking at you like you're crazy. So heart, grit, got to be a dog, and you got to be a good communicator.
Now I have a question. I've heard this from other people, and you've even said it, that these kids today, they're a lot different than we were. How are they different, and what's your recommendation on how they can push through those things? Because I've heard, they're not motivated by the same thing. It seems like they don't want it like we wanted it, or play as hard, or they criticism it's kind of hard for them to accept, like, criticism. So what's some things that you dealt with just even being a coach of how different they are than we were, and what's some ways for you to really, and like you said, be a communicator? That's definitely something I think that they, the kids now should definitely listen to. But what's some things that you think that they could do to push themselves past who they are, and really pushing forward to maybe put themselves in a better position?
I think kids today, one, got to really understand that it's not about you. In the whole grand scheme of things, it's not just about you. I feel like society has made it feel like, oh, everybody's entitled, everybody can get the same thing. And the reality is it's not. Everybody is not going to be afforded the same opportunities. Everybody's not going to be able to get the same pair of shoes. So it's not about you. It's about who you're competing against. And when kids understand that and they take themselves out of the equation and look at the bigger picture, then you're stepping up against thousands every day for a scholarship. I think that's definitely a wide view, and it's hard for them to understand that only about 2% of high school athletes get scholarships.
Wow.
And so, one, you take yourself out of it. It's not always about you. Two, understand there's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be days where you love it and days that you hate it. But days that you hate it and those bad days make you who you are. And how you deal with those moments is going to determine what you'll be the day after. Because we all have good games. But what do you do when you have bad games? Did you have a bad game because you was chasing a point number? Because you wanted to get the likes and the tweets on social media? Did you have a bad game because you didn't eat that day? Like, so analyzing why things don't go the way that you want them to go. And lastly, be accountable for you. I think this generation is so quick to point, oh, well, it was so-and-so fault. Man, I didn't have a good game because he ain't passed me the ball. Oh, I didn't make the time because I didn't hear you blow the whistle, coach. The best thing that an athlete can do in 2022 is be accountable and be able to hold themselves accountable into a higher standard. Just because you make the time twice, 2 out of 3 times, that ain't good enough. If the goal is 3, you make it every time. If the goal is you got to score 10 points every game for us to win, you hold yourself accountable and you do everything you have to do to make sure your team wins because you scored your 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's you getting a steal and you hustling and you not giving up on defense. Like, hold yourself accountable. Because when you learn to hold yourself accountable, you learn to hold other people around you accountable. And those are the type of kids that get scholarships these days. And the reality is, the ones that's going to get the flashy scholarships to go to the LSUs or the Auburns or NC States or the Duke, we already know who those kids are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not that kid, by the time you get to high school, the likelihood of you becoming that kid is very slim in the world that we live in. And I'm not saying that it can't happen, but what I'm saying is if you're chasing dreams that are unobtainable, you'll always set yourself up for failure. So if your dream is to play college basketball, leave it at that, no matter what level it is. JUCO, NAIA, D3, D2, D1, like all those are opportunities that thousands of kids don't get. So be accountable for the goals that you set for yourself and chase them like there's no other. And lastly, be a good student. Y'all can't you can't get recruited if you're a dummy in the classroom. Just don't work that way.
That's the truth.
And grades get you scholarships. Because I could work you a financial aid package where I can give you this academic money because I done gave all my athletic money away. But I can get you here and you could be on scholarship. But I can't give you that opportunity if your grades don't even set you up for that.
Right. And plus, like, if you go on to play in college, if you had the opportunity, you're going to have to be able to balance being a student and an athlete. Like, that's not going away.
Oh, yeah, that's way different. That's way different from
that's
when we
not
was
going
in
away. It's probably
like you got to be a student these days. Yeah, you got to be a student these days.
Yes.
You got to be able to hold your own.
Right. It's not a game. So I definitely think that's something that that last part, yes. You can't be no dummy, honey.
Yeah. And I mean, they said that back in the day too. I just think, we all know a couple people that got by.
Yeah.
It was just a lot different. But nowadays, to get by is just a slim chance. You got to be going to play for Nick Saban for something like that to happen. Everybody else holding their own.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Now, what does it mean to you to be an athlete from Hoke County?
Be honest, I don't really know. I have pride for the opportunities that Hoke County gave me as far as being able to play and be around some great people. But what does it mean to me? I mean, when I look at Hoke County these days, I think I'm more so saddened by the history, and just what's going on. It's just like athletics used to be something that we all took pride in. And when I think about Hoke County now, or even when I come to a game every now and again, it's just a different feel, and that makes me sad. because Hope County will always be home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's always where what gave me a start and jump started me to do something that I didn't even know I had in myself. And it's like, what happened to that?
Mm. That's very interesting because I had a interview with someone, and you know, we were talking about like the pride, at least when we were in school, that we had, and like, you know, I'm wondering if like the programs and even like the conferences, because now like the conference is just completely different, and who we play these random schools that, you know, don't nobody care about. And it's just like, back in the day, it used to be Hope County versus everybody, right? Everybody was our rival. So it was just like, you knew every game was gonna be packed out because it was like everybody was our rival. And it's just like, now it's like, where is that same like pride or, you know, passion? And I definitely understand what you mean. And you're not the only one that feels that way or sees that. Even with you not even being here, you see that from afar. It's really interesting. And I'm like, what is the solution? What is the solution to kind of get that pride back? You know, is it going to take like really like grassroots efforts for, you know, the schools or maybe even the teams or programs like really start to try to garner community support or more community support? Because I have seen like some teams like put themselves out there, and, you know, but it's just like, dang, what will it take for us to kind of get back to that? Or is it just a sign of the times?
You know, I want to say I think it's a bit of both, because the reality is most kids that are going to Hope County High School are our classmates, kids, or cousins. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people that graduated from Hope County didn't necessarily leave, so you knew what it was like. And I think a part of that issue is that they're holding on to what it was like and not being able to recognize the changes in the kids. Because these kids got their own legacy to live. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really got to create their own sense of pride. And what are they prideful for? And if you can't show them, if you're not really showing them what they're prideful for, then what? You know, I definitely. It's definitely a tough situation. I feel like, because I know the talent still has to be there. You know, Hope County always had athletes. It ain't like you woke up one morning and everybody on athletic.
Right.
So one is like, well, what are you doing with those athletes? Or two, why do we keep losing our athletes to those Cumberland County schools? What are they doing differently that we aren't doing? And until you really look at yourself and evaluate it for what it is, you'll keep losing those top kids to other districts. Because what are they staying for? Yeah.
Very true. Because if they don't have the pride, they're not gonna have that loyalty, that pride, you know, feel like they have opportunities, or they have people like, you know, really rooting for them and stuff. They're not gonna have like that sense of loyalty to stay. Because they like from Hope, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, no, this is home. I'm not going across the county line, you know, because this, that, and the third. No, I got people here that's gonna support me and push me and blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely agree with that. Now, what do you think your best sports moment or memory? What's your best sports memory?
My best sports memory. My best sports memory, I think, and I tell it to my kids to this day, will be Mr. Stewart, Coach Stewart, up there with his whistle and just be blowing it for us to run. And like, me, Kelly, and me, like, we used to just all be the pair, all dying laughing at Coach Stewart. Like, we never took him serious. And he just thought he was it when the time workshop would let him handle the conditioning. So that used to be hilarious. And then lastly, it would be when Matai Workshop would be like, all right, go ahead, yellow brick road, when you make you run. Or she'd be like, lap. You got a lap for that, and lap for this, and lap. And like, you just knew this was about to be a long practice. So I be joking with my kids, and I be like, all right, go ahead and follow this purple big road as you running around the gym. So definitely things that I take away, I still use that I learned under Ms. Hollenberg Shaw, or even just being in the locker room. I tell my kids all the time. I remember Hokecounty High School, we had lost the game, and the locker room was so lit. Like, we was going at each other. And we understood that it was what it was, and we needed to get it out. And the next day we came to practice like it never even happened. And you would have never known. But we knew that it was what it was. We got to move forward because we can't win if we hold grudges. Like, we put our pride aside, and it happened. You know what I'm saying? So I tell kids all the time, like, if you ain't really ride or die for your teammates like that, like, if y'all can't throw hands in the locker room, be pissed off for the next 12 hours and come into practice and grind it out together, I don't want you here. Because those moments made us tough. Those moments made us want to be there for each other. We knew that we had each other's back and wasn't nobody gonna say nothing. And we dared you to. And so that type of loyalty these kids don't understand, and you have to be able to teach them that through life lessons.
And that's interesting that's something like that has to be taught, even though within us, and I'm sure that was taught, but we kind of had that already in us. So now it's like trying to teach something that's not in them, and like it's like a skill or a principle to have that to make them better. Because I agree, like, there have been many drag out fussing and like carrying on, and then you just like shake it off, and like the next day, okay, what we about to do? Like, what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And that's a part of being a part of a team, because that's not gonna stop. That's not going to stop. Like, you always need to, because you can tell when a team really gels by the way they play on the court. You can tell. It's so evident.
Yeah, and I think that's coaches too, though. Like, so if you think about middle school coaches now, everybody just wants a good kid. And it's get the ball to so-and-so. And you forget about the other 4 people on the floor. So kids don't even know what it's like to be on a team these days. They don't really know the camaraderie of being on a team and grinding with your teammates and just going through it. Because it's like, okay, well, Johnny, you can't shoot, so you just go play defense. And Johnny never gets to take a shot. But then how is he really a part of the team? You know what I'm saying? So we as coaches got to understand what it was like for us to be on a team. Everybody can't be that it kid. And you'll never win with a team full of it kids.
Like you said, know your role.
You got to know your role, and you got to give kids the opportunity to show who they are. And until coaches change that mentality that we have, and I think social media has ruined that for us too. Like, everybody wants that one kid to go to college to put them on the map. But if you really embrace the team dynamic, and you really get the team to work hard, you can have 5 kids going to college instead of just that one. But you have to teach them, because they don't know that. And they honestly don't know that concept anymore.
Wow. So my last question is going to be, what is one piece of advice, and you get given, man, like you've given so many different gems that I feel like is really going to be good for people to hear. But what's one piece of advice that you have not given that you would give to a young athlete in Hoke County?
If you're in Hoke County and you're an athlete right now, and you're in high school, figure out what you want to do and promote yourself. Like, and you can reach out to me. Like, I'll do anything for a kid that wants to be able to play at the next level. Like, but promote yourself and find people that will promote you, and find people that's in your corner that want you to win. Like, truly win, not for their own selfish gains. If you're a middle school kid, you still got time. Stop letting people tell you that you got to figure out your sport and you got to specialize by the time you get in the 6th grade, because there's so many things that you learn by playing other different sports that it propels you forward once you get to high school. And if you in elementary school, just have fun. Don't worry about wins or losses. Don't care if somebody know who you are when you walk down the hallway in elementary school. Like, just have fun. Learn the game for what it is. Embrace the game. Play different positions. Because you have plenty of time. So, yeah, I think that's the issue. I think that's where you are, like, knowing how much time you have left and knowing when it's really time to push the clock. I think it's a balance that kids got to have. And so that's one thing that I was like, and again, like I said, though, I'm always willing to help any and everybody. So you could definitely put my contact information out, my email, my phone number. I don't really care, either or. And I'll help anybody that I can.
Y'all heard that? Look, y'all can look up Janie Hodges online. If y'all want some help, she is right there. You can hit me up. Facebook, Instagram, email me, definitely, because this is the type of, these kids, I think they may have aspirations. They may not know where to look, but knowing that somebody is out there and volunteering, like, hey, share my information. I don't mind. That's so
and hold me accountable.
Yeah.
Hold me accountable if I don't.
Right. Look, you gotta hit her up a few times because she is a busy woman. And that's cool. Like, that's good that you're actually busy. Like, a lot of people, they be wasting a whole lot of time. Like, but you're actually busy, right, doing stuff, being productive, feeding into young people, making a difference clearly, with the things that you've been able to accomplish with, your athletes, your daughter. Clearly, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, and you're doing it well. So big ups to you and everything that you've been able to do, since we've gotten out of school. And I love seeing you in the coaching element, because that's a different Janie than like that I remember, like athlete Janie. Coach Janie is definitely different. So, it's great to see that you're doing well, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview, because it's something that needed to happen. It's something that people need to hear, and I really, really appreciate it. I really do. If you want to follow more Janie's story, if you want to hear more stories about other athletes, please make sure you go to thenextoneuppodcast.com or find us on social media platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple. You can hear us anywhere. And Janie, thank you so much again for just taking the time to do this interview, taking time from your busy schedule to do this interview. I think people are really going to really love this one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And, I'm always willing to help.
Thank you. I appreciate it.